This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, here we go. We just approved the agenda. So, approved the minutes of the April 4th and 6th meeting and the claims. Assuming everybody has looked those over, I'll accept the motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 4th and 6th meetings and claims.
Okay, Mayor's made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Henderson seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Roll call, Jim.
Aye.
Sydney. Aye. Mike.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Todd.
Aye.
County Attorney General discussion.
Don't have a lot for you. I think I did forward to Rachel, maybe some of you, I got some stuff last week. Last week's meeting, there was discussion about the opioid settlement money and different ways it could be used. And I forwarded it to Rachel and maybe Jim, maybe some rest of you, I don't remember for sure. But there's going to be like a training. It's going to be like, it was like or just like a Zoom. I don't know if it's a Zoom call or in person. I don't remember. But if anybody's interested, there was going to be like a gathering or a class discussing different uses for opioid money. I don't think it's urgent that I cannot attend on that particular day. I don't think it's probably urgent that anybody does. Could. I think on that included in there, or at least after the class, I'm sure there'll be some materials that'll be posted probably on that website, so we can take a look at that and see if there's anything in there that we didn't know, that we need to know that we didn't know. So I thought I'd just point that out. One thing I want to do is I wanted to look at my email because one of the things that's under discussion is a resolution regarding the local option sales tax, and Iowa County Attorneys Association had been on the listserv for the Iowa County Attorneys Association. County attorneys will post a lot of questions and ask for advice from other people and so forth. There were some questions regarding that, there was somebody asking for sample language. I had forwarded it to one county attorney and said, well, here's what we're considering doing, but it's based on someone else. I said, so look at this, and if there's, looked okay to me, but if you think there's any problem in there, let me know. Well, that was yesterday. I hadn't heard anything as of earlier this morning. I'm just looking here real quick to see if she responded to anything. Yeah, it does not look like, from what I can tell here, that there's any changes. It's like there might be a little formatting difference or something like that. But so anyway, I would have looked at that earlier, but I didn't have it. So I'd take a look at that and point that out. If anybody had any concerns, doesn't look like anybody does. So that's probably about all I have specifically this morning.
Okay.
Anybody has questions or anything to talk about?
Any questions?
When was that meeting for the opioid discussion?
I keep looking at Rachel because
May
she'll.
24th and May 25th.
May 24th.
Yeah, and I've still got the email and
I
stuff,
do too.
and I can forward it, re-forward it there.
Okay, but yeah, the Zoom, I assume.
I don't know if I thought it was in person.
It is in person. Now, I don't know if they're gonna have like a Zoom link. I don't recall seeing that there was.
Where's it
Probably Des Moines.
I think so. Everything's in Des Moines.
at? Okay,
I'll look at that
okay, thanks.
again and,
Embassy Suites in Des Moines.
Can you just register for one day? Did I see that? I
I'd have to
think,
read the whole thing, but
which doesn't matter. I just think, I thought there was a registration for one day only at board.
I think so.
I'm not sure, Todd.
Okay, that's okay.
But, if there's interest in it, I'll look at it a little closer. Scrutinize that a little bit more. I can remember it was the days that I I think I've got some depositions going on at that time, so I'll look at it closely.
No registration fee. As they say,
No
sign up, you
registration
know what you
fee,
can,
so.
if you want to.
Yeah, there's no registration fee, so you can just sign up and.
Okay. Thinking that was a,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's fine.
Anything else for the county attorney? Guess we're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheriff update, sheriff's not here this morning. Department head discussion. Anybody have anything for department head discussion?
I would like to present some information to the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to address the 2023 assessments. I'm sure that there's been questions or perhaps discussion from property owners in Mitchell County. And I would like you to know, first of all, that Mitchell County, this is not isolated to just here. I did look online, and we have done, the Association of Assessors has done a survey as far as percentage of increases. And so I looked at some of the surrounding counties. And Floyd County, the residential increase was 24%, Howard County, 29%, Worth County, 31.5%, Winnebago County, 42%. Mitchell County is, our average was 25%. And I want you to know that I believe that that is also the state's average is 25% for increases to the residential property due to revaluation. So I would like to take that a step further, and I don't know if you recall, but during my conference board meeting for my budget this past February, I did provide to you a sales list of the actual sales that occurred in Mitchell County in 2022. And it was this sales list, these exact sales, that I had to use to determine property valuations for 2023. And you'll notice, of course, when you look at the sales ratio, that the percentage of the assessed value to the sale price is quite low. And that being said, out of the 143 normal arm's length transactions, 131 sales, the assessed value was under the sale price. There were only 12 sales in which the assessed value was over the sale price. The median ratio, meaning the middle sale, that's what determines the amount of revaluation that is necessary. Our median sales ratio is 75.4%. Basically, what that meant is that in order for me to be in compliance with state laws as far as being between the 95 to 105%, that's the statutory assessment level. I would need anywhere between $155 million to $235 million of added revaluation, again, to be in compliance with the statutory assessment level. So I can just tell you basically that the 2023 assessments were really just driven by sales. That's just the way it is. Of course, I realize and I understand that a lot of people are concerned with their property taxes. And even though in my letter that went with the assessment notices, I stated that I don't know what individual property taxes are going to do. I thought perhaps I could go through that schedule with you so that you can visually see the steps that have to take place before those taxes will be determined. And that's the first handout that I gave you. So basically, these are the steps that have to take place prior to determining property taxes for the 2023 assessment year. And I just want to point out a few that are really essential. Of course, April 1st was the deadline to mail the assessment rolls. Then, of course, we have the appeal process where property owners can appeal their valuations. Informal appeal dates is April 2nd through April 25th, where they can discuss their property valuation with the assessor. And then Board of Review appeals are accepted April 2nd through April 30th. Then during the month of May, we have the Board of Review session. Okay, and again, the Board of Review is a separate board that makes their own determination on whether a property owner has provided proof to require making an adjustment to their assessment. Then, of course, after Board of Review, a property owner still has the right to go to PAB or district court if they are still in disagreement with the Board of Review's decision. Okay, then of course we need to review legislative changes that will have occurred for this past legislative session that will affect assessors or any type of property tax reform. Next, July 1st is the deadline to send in the abstract of the assessment to the Department of Revenue. So again, the Department of Revenue does not receive the abstract of assessments until after the protest period and Board of Review period has taken place. Of course, then there's always the possibility that we could receive an equalization order. So preliminary equalization orders are issued mid-August. Final equalization orders are received by October 1st. Now, we all know that the first half of property taxes are due at the end of September. Now, just so you know, that this coming September, that will be based on the 2022 taxable valuations, not 2023. So because again, we're still going through our process for 2023. So the taxes that are going to be due and payable this coming September will be based on the 2022 taxable valuations, okay? After that, usually mid-October, but it's due November 1st, is when the director of the Department of Revenue will issue the rollback percentages. Now that rollback is also known as the assessment limitation, and that limits the growth of residential property to 3% statewide, okay? So when you look at your property tax receipt, you'll see two columns. You'll have your assessed value and your taxable value. Just know that your property taxes are calculated with the taxable value. And that percentage is determined by the Iowa Department of Revenue. And that is the reason why there's two valuations. The taxable value, again, is due to that rollback percentage, which limits the growth to the residential class of property to 3% statewide. Then, of course, early next year is when we'll have our budget hearings for fiscal year 24-25. It's those budgets that will determine the tax rate for the 2023 taxable valuations. So all these processes have to take place before there can be any determination of what property taxes are going to do based on the 2023 assessments. Just kind of the summary at the bottom, if you wouldn't mind. It says that property taxes are calculated with the taxable value, not the assessed. The percentage of the assessed value that will be taxable for 2023 will not be known until this fall. The tax rate, or the levy, determines how much you pay on your taxable value. In other words, the budgets determine the tax rates, not the valuation. And taxes on the 2023 values will be payable September 2024, March of 2025 for that fiscal year's budgets. Which again, those budget hearings will take place, generally speaking, February, March of 2024. Is there any questions that I can answer?
Most questions I've been getting is, so your assessment goes up 20,000, is my taxes gonna go up 20,000?
All right, let's address that. On the very last page, I have a hypothetical calculation where it does show the 2022 assessment. I tried to just use easy numbers. So let's say your assessed value in 2022 was 100,000. And of course, we know the rollback percentage for 2022 is 54.6501%. So that means your taxable valuation would be 54,650. Let's say you have a 25% increase for 2023. So your property value was 100,000, now it's gone up to 125. Now they're estimating, and this is again an estimate, it's a shot in the dark, but the estimated residential rollback percentage we're guessing is going to be around 46%. So we're going from a 54% taxable percentage down to 46. And again, that's to offset the increase in the assessments and limit the growth statewide to 3%. So with the 46% rollback percentage, now our taxable value is 57,500. So you'll see below that the percent change in the assessment was 25%, but the estimated percent change in the taxable value was 5.2%. Does that make sense to everybody? And of course, below that, I have the same calculation just with a 30% increase. And there, the estimated percent to the taxable value would be 9.4. So individually, it's going to depend on what your property did as far as the percentage increase for an individual property. But again, the statewide growth limit is 3%.
So when the statewide growth is 3%, does that mean somebody's taxes could only raise 3% or just?
It means there's a limit to the growth in the assessment. And that's why we have the taxable valuation. And that's why everything, whether it be budgets, the tax rates, property taxes, the tax base, everything is calculated with the taxable value, not the assessed.
Are you getting a lot of people appealing or wanting to appeal?
I've given out one petition. I have not yet received it back.
Okay.
Is there anything else I can answer for you?
You're required to do this on every odd year, correct?
That is correct.
That's by law.
Revaluation
That's state
by
law.
law, yes. Revaluation by law is every 2 years for the odd year. That is required by law, yes.
Okay.
And if she doesn't do it, then the state will file an equalization order, which is not fun in the tax process.
Right, so what Rachel is saying is that, again, we have to meet that statutory assessment level. If we don't meet that level, the state will step in, and what they'll do is they will apply a straight percentage across the board to get us to that statutory assessment level of between 95 and 105%. But of course, the state will target 100%. So what they would do is issue an equalization order. That equalization order is actually applied by the auditor. She has to apply that percentage of value to that entire class of property. In other words, it's going to go on irregardless. Either I, as the assessor, do it or the state does it.
You'd had in your equalization order listed some.
Yes, that is correct.
That's
And
only if you don't do it, then that's.
that's if we don't reach our target of 95 to 105%. And I want you to know that in actuality, that is a possibility. And I'll tell you why. I have yet to receive my final sales list from the Iowa Department of Revenue. This list right here is the most updated list that I have from the Department of Revenue. This came to me in January. I have not received an updated list since then. The reason being that their DOB portal, their website portal, has been shut down for a couple of months while they are redoing their website. So because the website's been shut down, I was not able to complete submitting the 2022 sales. They just reopened the portal at the end of last week. We have until April 14th to enter our final 2022 sales. They have just been entered. I still don't have a final exact figure for that median sale from which I have to determine revaluation. That being said, I was basically aiming at a moving target. So there is still a possibility that we could get an additional increase.
So what was sent out to the people might not be exactly 100%.
Right.
And it might end up being the state would come in anyway.
Right. That's why I'm saying there's so many processes that have to take place before property taxes will be calculated. And that is part of the reason. Yes. Yeah, that is correct. I know it's not fun. No, it's
Not
not.
fun for you.
No, it's not fun. But right now we are at step one of the process, okay? Everything that comes after, I want you to know, is actually not within my jurisdiction. So my only concern is to be at market value. That's literally it. I don't determine taxes. I don't calculate taxes. I know that's a huge misconception, but I do determine market value. And like any appraisal, it's an estimate. It's an estimation of value based on comparable sales. So.
Any questions for the assessor?
Looks like property has really increased in 2 years then.
It has gone up tremendously, and like I said, not an isolated incident.
No.
This is statewide. I mean, it truly is. And from what I can see, the state's average is a 25% increase.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for the
Thank
information.
you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other department head discussion?
I got a couple things, just a reminder, budget amendment, you can get it to me by noon today. And then we did get our audit completed. I just wanted to talk about quickly 3 things that were in the scheduled findings. The first one, the segregation of duties, that's always gonna be on there. That's basically saying one person, let's say our office. There's a lot of things that we do across the board where we could always use another person, but it doesn't really make sense to have it all year round, that person. Smaller counties, they said it's always gonna be in there, so not a big deal. There's one last year we had transferred money from our capital projects to our general fund because we didn't have any capital projects. We'd done it before the budget amendment. He said not a big deal, don't do it. His big one, was the capital assets. We need to have better control over them and making sure that they get into inventory and listed correctly. So we're gonna work on how to make that happen, I guess. Make sure that all those get entered at the time that they should be entered, and if anything's traded, get it taken out of inventory then. So, pretty good.
Secondary roads, that seems to be a struggle every year.
Yeah,
We put it in and never shows up the next year.
That's what
I
we
don't
got.
understand what's going on with it, but
I don't know.
we always take care of it almost right away. And every year we do our inventory on our equipment. The next year we gotta redo it knowing we did it. I don't know if it's their accounting system or what, but it just seems to be a hassle.
Yeah.
So that's probably where most of the asset issues were, but
There and conservation in quite a few.
we got the most equipment.
Right.
And we had motor graders on there from 2015 that I know we've taken off more than once that still show up, so. Anyway.
Yeah.
We just work
We'll
through.
figure out the process, I don't know.
Rachel, you sent out some, line items for the opioid thing.
Yes.
Did the whole board get that? Just wondered, does that need to be,
I talked to, Megan stopped over yesterday and we thought, I mean, the numbers is kind of a moving target again, but as long as it wasn't over the total bottom, I think it came out, I think it put in there 30,000 total. The big question is just how to figure out, like the room and board I put on there, if someone was to ensure that, I haven't called the detention centers yet, but to figure out if they are able to tell us if it's opioid related. I know in the reports they tell you if it's substance abuse, but if substance abuse doesn't classify opioid money, it needs to be opioid related. So we need to see if we can figure that out.
to talk about that, I read that MOU and I thought it was just simply substance abuse. So after last week's meeting, I went over and I talked with Megan, and she had it up. And it says, unless I saw one that didn't have it, but everywhere it says opioid in conjunction, no, substance abuse in conjunction with opioid, it ties it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but figured that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so these will be part of the budget amendment
Yes.
then?
Yep.
Okay,
That was added.
all right.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
I say I thought it looked okay.
Okay.
I think, and there's one line item that's other that that's where I think the ads can get put into. And I guess if there's anything kind of random, we can always create line items anytime during the year too, but other kind of catches.
Whenever it says other, when they turn an invoice, they're gonna have to make sure it says on there
Yes.
what other is.
Yes,
So,
other will have to be listed.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Amanda, you have something?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
got something.
Okay.
Our department had discussion.
Yeah.
We had the Board of Adjustment meeting on April 6th last week. And I wanted to let all of you know that there was a conditional use permit issued to LR Fault Construction to expand the quarry to across the road, from their original quarry. And on this conditional use permit, there were quite a few conditions that the board placed to be able to have them start working, and I wanted to make you guys aware of those. So the first condition is that LR Falk has to pay for a home inspection for the neighboring property to take place before they actually start working to ensure structural soundness. So it helps both parties that way. So we have that wrote on there, along with getting their well tested before and any time during their work period. So I wrote the stipulation on there that the well needs to be tested before any work on the quarry takes place, and that the homeowners can request a well test at least once a year. So whenever they feel that their well needs testing, they can request that at LR Falk's expense. If they don't go through my office for the free water testing, if they want extra things tested, it'll be at LR Falk Construction's expense. The third thing is that a berm must be present around the quarry, and especially on the east side of the quarry or the west side of the neighboring property to ensure protection for their home and their buildings and all that kind of stuff, also their children and them themselves. The fourth one is that the quarry must be set back from the neighboring property a minimum of 100 foot. So state code says that realistically they could go 50 foot, but with this stipulation, they have to stay back 100 foot from that east side of the quarry, west side of the property. And then the last one is that LR Falk will be responsible for dust control on the road a minimum 2 times a year, which was what was discussed at the meeting. So. But it was issued, so they are good to start work. They just have to adhere to these conditions and they have their permit, so. I just wanted to let you guys know about that.
Appreciate that.
Do you have any questions?
Was trees put on that too, or is that just?
Yeah, and that's part of the berm, yep. Yep.
So the constructed berm, but the trees will be adjacent to the berm?
Yeah, so they're gonna put trees, along the berm, and then, they're gonna fill it in with, like short grass, but fast growing trees. So,
And all of this is on the quarry property, I'll say. It's not, the landowner doesn't have to have any of this
Nope, it'll
responsibility.
be on the quarry property, it'll be on, the minimum is, it would be the east side of the quarry, and it'll kind of butt up next to the west side of their property.
Okay.
Yep, and they're gonna start construction, specifically away from that property itself on the northwest side. So that way, all of their like blastings and all of that kind of stuff, it'll take place the farthest possible spot away from the house. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for Amanda?
No.
Hopefully I covered it all. I know quite a few of you were there, but yeah.
Very good. Anything else?
Read an article in the paper last week on, I was gonna say Jennifer was here today, but didn't we give 300,000 for a spec building?
Mm-hmm.
And see, they're gonna take that money and use for some housing development, housing program?
Is proposed.
If that money was designated for a spec building, how can they use that money for something else?
It was just proposed. It's not happening, it was just proposed.
Must have read the paper on that.
Maybe you can't always believe everything that's in the paper either.
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
And part of that was a discussion was that, that previous spec building, which was in Stacyville, which was long before us, never got, it was like year 10. The 10th year was almost up before anybody. So they discussed about, you know, we've given them 300,000, and there's nobody, you know, it's on the website, it's been advertised and stuff. And so they just thought, what area could we go that we would need, that it would be used more? And so I think that's kind of where they were going with it. Because then, since we've been on, there was 150 in there, right? If I remember right. And then we gave that back because nobody used it, and then asked for that 300. So
Yeah, they paid that 150 back, and then we upped it to 300.
yeah, and
And build it for 150. So
no, and there's nobody really fighting at the bit for this either. So a lot of that was discussion. I guess I didn't staying out of the papers sometimes, but
One of the thoughts is rather, you know, if it's not it's not being used, rather than just having it sit there, is it better to actually use it rather than just having them out just sitting there and really not getting used? So I think that's what the idea was, is well, maybe we can actually utilize it and get it so that it's doing something. But from what I didn't attend the meeting, but I talked to Jenny and it just was proposed. So. That's all I have.
And that would have to come back to us anyway, because we really are the ones that have the last say on it, so.
It was designated for the spectrum.
Correct.
Rachel, there was an email in regards to vacation for an employee in secondary roads. Did that ever get resolved? It came to the board. Did that get figured out?
I don't know.
Okay, all right,
As far as I know, it hasn't been.
okay.
The email went out, you know, with the whole accrual thing, it affected 2 people in my office. Well, Merlin's now in the shop, Melissa's in the office. The email went out, I think in July.
July 6th.
I thought we had forwarded it to Merlin. I think in September, another email came out, which the email that was sent to him at that time was a different email address that he didn't even know he had. He was using a different email address. So I think what happened was there was a communication flaw in communicating with him what he needed to do. And then on top of that, December is his anniversary date. So by the time the accrual process, we talked about it in July, I think the accrual didn't take place until September or October. He got almost a year's worth of vacation dumped on him before December, which is our busy season. And so to try to burn it down was kind of a difficult task for him.
You would have got it July 1st.
He didn't though. The accrual didn't show up until October, I think, according to the paperwork we were looking at with the other stuff. So my proposal was, let's get him burned down. I said, let's get him through this fiscal year because it's all earned in this fiscal year yet. Let's get him zeroed out the fiscal year and it won't be a problem anymore. If we want to shorten it up and not make July and make it a different date, that's fine. But I think he's earned it. We need to get him burned down, and it affected one person. And it was probably just, first of all, hard to explain for me how to burn it down. And second of all, the email address was sent, we just said, you know, check your email. Just didn't get the right email address put in there. I think it's got sent to a Mitchell County IA.us one, and he uses the Osage.net one. I didn't know that he got it sent to the wrong email address. So I think it was a breakdown in communication on my end a little bit, and trying to bump that or burn that vacation right before winter was probably a little bit difficult for him. So, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it. I want to make it work where he can still earn his vacation. He says he'll burn it down before any date that we need to give it to him, but I think the flaw was between that time of trying to burn it down to the maximum accrual and the time frame it was in December and his anniversary date, it kind of loaded up on him. So I'll take the blame for it, but I think we can solve the problem pretty easy and just.
Okay, so it's gonna be manageable in the future.
Yeah, I think once we get everything dialed in, it'll be a lot easier to watch.
Because I know the email came to us and I didn't want to just let it go either, so, but yeah, if it's a problem that we can manage, then.
I think it is, as long as shouldn't be no big of an issue as with the payroll, but I think it can be, it'll just get them squared away before end of fiscal year. I mean, I think he could probably burn it down a lot sooner if he plans on it, but he just wants to get some of his accrual back that he hasn't been getting since December. Right. And then once it's done, and we got it solved.
Good. All right. Are we done with department head discussion? County engineer update.
All right, we'll get to the budget right away. I get that. You guys already had a long meeting. So I handed out in front of you the proposed fiscal 24 budget. I don't remember what order I gave you the sheets. On the very top sheet, I think it is do you have the FM projection sheet? Is that what spreadsheet? Yeah. So what I try to do every year, and it seems like every year I try to modify the spreadsheet a little bit, but it gives us our farm to market current balances and projections when we do projects. And so, looking at the budget, trying to spend our money as best we can and still trying not to violate the code of Iowa and our borrow ahead amounts. I try to put projects in where we think we can still meet our needs without overdrawing our account. So what you'll see is a list of projects on the farm to market projection balances. When the column says change, you can see the number doesn't change, but that's a conservative number of 79,000. I know that it changes. It most likely will go up, but sometimes it actually does go down in our allocation per year. So it's best just to budget for what we have right now, and it's conservative that way. Things will probably change, and so will prices of projects too. So what you'll see is fiscal 23, we've got our STP project. That's a hard number there. The balance that they gave me in April is pretty close to the balance they had in our software from the Service Bureau for our allocations. So this is just projected. So we're trying to keep from borrowing more than 3 years in advance. Fiscal 26, you'll see that we're really approaching that 3-year borrow ahead. That's a project we're going to work with Howard County with on Addison Avenue. We pushed it back a year. And then you'll see the next year we don't have a project in paving because we've already borrowed almost 3 years in advance. And I want to try to put Indigo Avenue into the federal aid system in fiscal 28. And so that'll put our farm to market account back into the almost 3-year borrow ahead. And that's all depending on how construction projects and costs are. So I'm trying to keep a tight balance around zero, but projects do vary us a little bit. So that's the explanation of the farm to market projects, trying to do a project every year. You'll see in fiscal 25, I have the Stacyville grant in there. That is also an unknown right now. And I'll get to you guys after we do the budget. I'll give you an update on that project a little bit too. But right now it's planned for fiscal 25, where we might have to come up with 30% of the project costs. Just don't know how the grant's going to read yet, whether it's going to be 80%, 70%, or even possibly 60%. The maximum amount of award for any grant is 25 million. And so the state of Iowa put counties together to try to at least get 25 million, and however our projects are might be determine how much the federal government will pay for our projects in a percentage. So that's the farm to market side. If you flip it over, on the other side is our bridge forecast too. That one we can borrow ahead, I think, up to 4.5 years. We kind of got to be careful with that too. We're only getting $26,000 a year. I do see an error now. I think that 19,000 is carried over from the Worth County spreadsheet. So that's a little bit off, but we're still trying to do one project per year. And the change of $10,000 isn't going to make a lot of difference in $10,000 a month isn't going to make a lot of difference in these negatives. And I can update for you. I just noticed that those are different now. At any rate, we're trying to do a bridge project a year. We've got in fiscal 26, we've got the bridge south of McIntyre. That's still not a for sure grant opportunity yet, but it's in there. We got to have the money in our account in order to pay for that project, depending on if it goes 60, 70, or 80% of the funds. So I'll modify that spreadsheet. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that number was wrong until I actually got to looking at our numbers. But we're still going to have negative. I mean, you're looking at 10. I don't even know if it's not even $10,000 a month. It'll be a small amount to change, but we'll still be borrowed ahead by fiscal 28. Obviously, we can't do 2 projects. In fact, I think I have 3 of them in fiscal 28. We can't do all those because we'll be borrowed ahead. So those are just the projections on what I see in the budget for farm to market, STP, and bridge projects. In the budget, in the 5-year program, we do have some local projects slated. Whether or not we try to budget for all the funding for them. You'll see in fiscal 24 now on the program, we're going to try to do Lime Kiln, March Avenue, and Orchard Road. And those aren't going to be, Lime Kiln is probably a simple overlay
just to try to get some service back on that road. March Avenue and Orchard Road, March Avenue is the detour around Osage, past the engineer's office and around. That one needs a little bit of work. Trying to think of a crack and seat project, maybe in a thin asphalt overlay on that to get some ride back in it. And then Orchard Road, we have some stretches, and mostly it's that north-south stretch to the curves from Highway 9 to the south. There's a stretch in there that's got some quarter point cracking where the pavement's kind of sloughed off, and trying to figure out a way to maybe modify that pavement a little bit to get a better ride in there and kind of take a little bit of the pull away from the vehicles if they were to wander and get that quarter point joint, that crack. And we've got some bridge projects in there, a couple of local bridges, trying to target those two bridges, what road it is now, just north of Mitchell, those two little bridges that are kind of deteriorating. They're not posted yet, but they need to be replaced with something else. And right now, we might be just looking at a box culvert.
Could that north one be eliminated?
That's a good question, and I don't think we can afford to eliminate it. And the answer is, if we eliminate that, we have to we're taking a natural stream out of its normal flow, and now you're talking dollars per feet of reallocating a stream bed. Much like taking a floodplain out of floodplain and buying credits, like you guys had just done with conservation, a mitigation bank for floodways. There's also stream bed allocations too, where if you want to reroute it and you have to reroute the stream on one end, I think is what you're saying, is reroute the stream on one side of the road to.
Well, when rerouted, it runs down the ditch now, and then across the road, goes around the pasture, and then comes back across.
Yeah.
Or if it's okay to run it down the ditch there, you're just gonna run it.
That was, I get that. That was the natural flow in that ditch. I don't know how that all got established. But yeah, it comes around and I can see that. And I thought about that, but now you're gonna take that natural stream out of production or out of that. Can't alter natural flow without any sort of DNR thing. And I know this because I tried it once, where we had in Worth County, years ago, they had DNR permission to change the flow of a stream. The landowner on the side who were gonna eliminate the stream wanted water yet, so they put a culvert under the road to get a little bit of trickle of water through there for cattle. The landowner had passed away. A new landowner said, I don't want the stream anymore. The landowner filled the stream in, and we blocked off the culvert. The DNR says, if you want to start paying X amount of dollars per foot, we'll let you do that. Otherwise, you open it back up. So it's going to be expensive, and more expensive probably than putting some sort of structure back in to alter that. And then I don't know, does the landowner on that side still want water? I think.
Well, there's tiles that run in there, and then there's springs in their pasture.
So there's,
if you keep going down the Mitchell Road, it runs along the Mitchell Road for 3/4 of a mile along the ditch. And then you go down farther, Linekill Road, the county took out not one, but two bridges in the early 80s on that same stream.
a lot of different rules now than there were back then, but it'd be more expensive. I can certainly look into it if you want me to.
Second, and normal rain, that ditch will take it, because it takes it on the Mitchell Road, and but that's just an option.
Yeah, no, I've thought about that too, because you even look at Timber Avenue going north on by the quarry up there, how many times that stream crosses the road and how many structures we have replaced in there over time. It gets expensive. You could wish you could just run it straight, but the conservation, the DNR side of things has gotten a little bit more difficult to work with in trying to reroute streams. So I'll look into it, but anyway, it'd be nice to eliminate some of
Is
this.
it really called a stream there, or is it just a drainage?
Yeah, it's a natural stream. I don't think it's in a drainage district at all, so it's a natural waterway. So, but I get the question, and I've thought about that too, and I think it gets to be kind of expensive to reroute streams we can look at it though.
I know out to the Reimers farm, the natural flow of that the little cedar is completely changed, and it's now eroding up to almost to their field where the floods and stuff had changed it. So we went and talked to them about if we could do it ourselves, and we have aerial view of, you can see where the flow used to go, and they laughed at us. I mean, even though it's eroding, it's right up to the lane right now. And we did put a stream bank in there. But yeah, they laughed. It's like, well, we didn't think it was funny. We thought, well, let's just get it back where it won't even be close to our field.
You're trying to protect your property.
Correct. And so that was probably 6-8 years ago.
I won't say it's impossible to do, but it's a lot of red tape to probably go through, and then I don't know what the costs are, but I know that I can't remember the number they gave me for per foot costs to relocate a stream bed, but it wasn't cheap. It was almost ridiculous what they were gonna charge, so. Anyway, further on, you'll see I put in another bridge project for the following year. It's a Turtle Creek on 105. I know that bridge is kind of posted one lane. I'm not sure what kind of repairs we need to do yet to strengthen that bridge, but can all change. We're more focused on fiscal 24 than we are further out, but we do have, I don't like the way our system projects this printout to make it legible for you guys to understand, but then we have our illustrative project in Stacyville in fiscal 25 too, with the federal money and the FM balances. So you can kind of look through their fiscal 27. If you look in the map, it might give you a better idea of what's going on too. Fiscal 27, you'll see we only have one project in there, but that'll change. But based on farm to market dollars and HBP dollars, trying to load up one year or trying to put more projects in that year throws our balances off for the following years. And maybe some of these projects get pushed back a year just based on whether we have the capacity to put that many projects out in a year without hiring consultants to do it. So anyway, the last sheet of that is the summary of what we intend to spend per year. Swap money, farm to market, local and federal aid. So you'll see the 28 numbers are kind of high, but I know that there's no way we'll have $8.2 million in our farm to market fund in fiscal 28, but they're projects that are programmed so that maybe there's some funding that becomes available through this grants is something that we've got it programmed for. So, and that $8 million was 465th Street going west out of Stacyville to 218. That was 5.2 million as an estimate. Don't know what we're going to do there yet, but it's a dollar amount to put in there to focus on. And then the other one was Indigo, and Indigo Avenue is past the Fall Quarry, going from 218 to 465th. I'm going to try to put that into the STP program next year, use some federal money on that if we have some available, depending on how the Stacyville project works. So trying to forecast long range is not always the easiest thing, but the budget then is got the projects in there, what we're going to do in fiscal 24. I guess the biggest items of note on budget is probably a $750,000 budget item for new equipment. Probably purchasing that motor grader soon. We'll see how that works with our current budget. And then we probably need some more trucks, probably looking at some mowers and things like that for next fiscal year. Looking at a potential carryover balance of $421,000 for next year. Sounds low, sounds scary, but I think that we're going to be conservative on this year's budget. We'll carry over more than that. Seems like no matter what we do, we're always kind of conservative in the end, and we always have a substantial balance to move over in case things come up. So that's the budget in a nutshell. The map's a good idea of where we're at. And I did add in the program for 26 some local paving projects, the River Road, 340th and 319th and March Avenue down by Orchard there that needs some work. That's all assuming there's enough local money to do those projects in that fiscal year. a lot of things can change. As the assessor said, we're always a moving target at trying to figure out what prices are gonna do, what Mother Nature is gonna hand to us for deterioration. And then in fiscal '24, we'll have bridge inspections again. So we'll see what our condition of our bridge is in at that time too. I don't know if you have any questions.
Any questions for the engineer on the budget?
If not, I'd like to get the budget and program approved so I can submit that to DOT.
So, if there's no questions, I'll accept the motion to approve the DOT program and budget.
Make a motion to approve the DOT program and budget.
Those made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Meyer seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Roll call, Todd.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Sydney. Aye. Jim.
Aye. Motion carries.
Another thing on, I don't know if you guys need approval or just consensus of the board. I'm bringing, because we haven't had a whole lot of response to our ad for an assistant, I am bringing Bill Spitz into my office and going to start training him on construction inspections and things that we need in the office there. Ironically, the day we worked everything out for pay and things like that, I did get an email application from a student from Iowa State that's going to be graduating this spring, but, you know, depends on how the interviews go and everything else. But for now, I need extra hands in the office. And so I've offered him not quite what we were paying our last assistant, because obviously we need to train him, but I'm bringing him in. The idea was he accepted the invitation to work as long as we need him in the office until we find, I want to say, a more permanent employee for us. And that doesn't mean that even if we do find another employee that we still wouldn't utilize him in the office, but offering him $60,000 a year, which is about $28.85 an hour, effective yesterday. And then we'll keep him on his vacation and holiday schedule because we will utilize him in the wintertime to plow snow. So it helps us out in that regards as to not having to find another snowplow operator for the wintertime. So I don't know if you guys need to approve anything or just have a consensus, but that's the intent, is to try to get somebody in there and start getting some things off my plate as best we can.
So he will be hourly, but that hourly computes to 60,000.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And then we will utilize him, and because he's gonna be working in the office, we'll use that same rate when he's out plowing snow too. We haven't been paying an assistant for almost a year, so but the budget shouldn't be affected by doing this either.
Right.
If you're okay with it, we'll
Questions for the engineer?
get it through.
Consensus of the board, okay with that?
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Yes, you do.
All right. Finally, went to the city council meeting in Stacyville last night to kind of give them an update on the grant project that we proposed, or that I proposed to the committee, giving them an update. I gave you guys a handout on what I presented to them last night. I know I've given you guys a lot of information on the grant right now. I think last week it was, and I don't remember if we had the meeting before I talked to you guys last week or not. We had a meeting with a potential consultant to do the grant writing. Just had a lot of success in writing grants to get federal funds for all kinds of other grants, for other counties and other states as well. So what I gave you was just kind of the breakdown of what, this sheet just shows what's in TPMS, our programming for the project itself, the funding and everything else. Just gives you the location and what we program and what year it's programmed for. Then you have the estimate sheet, which we worked out. I think you have that right. The next one is the estimate sheet, where it's got city work and rural work. It's kind of a division of two projects, where the grant committee only allows us a 15% contingency. So we're looking at a total project cost, including engineering, at about 7.4 million. Now, a question was asked last night by the city, well, why, what if you took the roadway section out from 218 into town? That really doesn't affect the city work at all. It was a way to try to get as much money as we could into Mitchell County. So I don't think putting the roadway section in the grant hurts us at all. It actually helps us because, one, we can get more federal money into the county without coming up with our own and using other allocations. And it wouldn't hurt the city, it wouldn't change the city's aspect at all as far as what they're paying. So the first side is what I came up with is more of a detailed estimate than usual. And that could change dramatically just based on, when we get some survey and stuff done later on, if we get the grant. So that's the estimate there. On the back side is what I gave the city for what I think their estimated costs would be. And then what 30% of their construction costs would be based on the fact that if we only get 70% of the grant money versus an 80%, they'd have to come up with a dollar amount equal to what that estimate would show. Like I said, it's a shot in the dark as to what it's actually going to cost, but giving them an idea of say, hey, look, this is a project that we need to have, what we should have done. Mike was there last night, kind of saying, we think it's a good project. I think it's a good project for, number one, the city of Statesville, number two, for the county, to try to get Stacyville's Main Street refreshed. We've got some bad roads that we need to take care of going east and west out of town anyway, some drainage things that for the city itself, I think it'd be an economic benefit to them to invest. They've invested a lot in their town already. They're still trying to invest in their town with side street work. They've upgraded a lot of their utilities, their underground sewer and water systems. They've been doing a lot, trying to expand their housing more and everything else. So having that discussion, they weren't, I kind of said, if you don't want to do anything, tell me now so we can get out of the grant and some other county can get in. I don't think I got that vibe from them. They were concerned about, can they come up with funding? And I said, I won't speak for the board, but if we do this project, we'll have to have a separate 2080 agreement. And maybe the city can talk to the board about financial woes or some sort of financial help if it's needed to help them pay for their side of their 30% if they can't afford to. But I think when I look at the overall picture, a $7.3 million, $7.4 million project, we can get $5 million or more that we don't have to come up with ourselves. That's a win. So come up, if we got to come up with $2 million between the county and the city, and most of the funding is going to be ours. We take care of the 22, 24 foot roadway, whatever's through town. Their costs come from the curb and gutter, manhole adjustments, and a really big portion of it's going to be ADA compliance after that, getting their sidewalks up to compliance, because when we go through town, we've got to evaluate all those side streets with sidewalks and they have to be compliant in the end. So that's where their big expense is going to come in, is mostly on that aspect of it. When it's done, at least their intersections are compliant with ADA. I'm not saying their sidewalks between the blocks are compliant, but we don't touch that. We touch only where we're making intersection adjustments and things like that. So I gave you guys a little story of what I wrote for the city, and then also a copy of the questionnaires that were filled out to even qualify to get the grant. You guys can read that at your leisure. If you want to fall asleep, that's fine. But just wanted to give you an update on that meeting last night. Mike, did you have anything else? You were there. Did I cover everything?
Yeah, I know Harlan said they can only borrow so much money, probably per capita or whatever.
Right. They have their borrowing limits too, just like the counties.
They might not have enough to get, they might be over the limit, so they might not have enough to do it all. So I don't know.
I guess maybe one thing I should ask the board is, are you guys as a board willing to consider, if they need the help, to find a way to work through the financial help if they need it? I mean, I understand that they're an entity that creates their own tax base and their population under 500, but if there's no way, if you guys don't feel there's a way that we can work with the city and the county together to help make this project successful, then we should bow out and let somebody else try to get the funding in another county. But I don't know what your thoughts are.
When you say help, are you saying that we come up with the money and they pay a portion of that back?
That's one option, yes. I mean, I don't know how you guys want to do that, if there's financial availability to do that, but in a sense,
it's a couple of years out. At
It's,
least.
right, but we need to kind of figure out, we're looking at fiscal 25, we've got this construction season, next construction season, and then we're probably building in 25. So we need to kind of make sure that, are we willing to assist as a county if the city can't meet the needs for this project? And I know it's a tough decision, we don't have to make the decision now, but if we can't make things work through a 2080 agreement with the city on funding, and I don't know what their balances are either, it's something that, talking to Harlan, we didn't get into details last night financially, but it's something that we should either figure out now, or bow out and let somebody else take the opportunity.
When do you need to know?
Well, right now, we're going through the process. First of all, again, we don't know whether they're gonna get the grant. The consultant that we're potentially gonna work with, I think they actually agreed to use, has a lot of experience. They're gonna review all the projects also and find out if, they might look at it and say, hey, Mitchell's County's projects probably doesn't look as favorable as maybe another county, even though our committee, our engineers committee, decided which project should move forward. The consultant that's been successful at these might say something different. Not to say that ours is bad or somebody else's, but we don't want to be the county that all of a sudden says, oh, by the way, I guess we can't make it work financially. And we're putting all this data together between 6, 7, 8 counties. And all of a sudden the grant is no longer good because we're bowing out because we can't make it work. And to try to shove another county in there later in the game during the process, the notice of funding opportunity hasn't come out yet, but we expect it soon. And then they're going to give us a deadline to submit the documents. Right now, any county that's been not approved to be in the grant still has a lot of the documentation we have right now. So the earlier the better, but if we start developing storylines and getting letters of support from the local businesses and things like that, we don't want another county to be behind the 8 ball and have to struggle to try to rush through that. But the sooner the better, I would say. Or even, do you guys feel like it's something you guys can participate in to help? I mean, I don't know where we're going to be at either financially. We're hoping that, depending on the percentage of funding that we get from the grant, I may not be able to use STP dollars in Indigo. I may use the STP dollars to put back into this project to go from 70 to 80%. So we have less farm to market money to have to put toward the project too. There's a whole juggling act of finances here. Their estimate was, what was it, I'll just round it to $340,000. That's their 30%. I don't know what their financial capacity is right now, but they've got a lot of stuff planned in their city too. So I guess the question to maybe think about is there a way to assist them? And I wouldn't say take the burden from them because it is their infrastructure that's being improved. It should be their costs. But is there a way to work with the city to allow the project to proceed in some sort?
So you're looking at a percent of the 340,000?
I don't know. I guess I don't know. It depends on what they can afford. Or do we pay the whole thing because it's one project, we're going to cover it, and then we find a way for them to reimburse the county for their portion, whether it's payments over years, something to that effect.
Just wonder when that happens, or I'm not even saying we're gonna come up with money, but if we come up with money, but then they pay us back, how that payback goes into a fund that it came out of. I mean, that's not just, it's
Right.
not like you're letting me money and I'm just paying you back.
So what happened when we did the bridge project in Stacyville, they had their portion, they paid their portion. We used our bridge funds to pay for it, and then back then I think it was swap. So we used all that money from our swap fund. They reimbursed the county their share, but it went into the road use, or the secondary road fund. We didn't reimburse our bridge fund, we just got the money back in our local fund, but they did pay us, they reimbursed us. So depending on where the funds come from, where do you put the money when it's done?
Mm-hmm.
My guess is that we'll be using federal aid grant money, and we'll use farm to market funds to reimburse that for the whole project. So in a sense, if we have enough farm to market funds, we'll foot the whole bill. We just gotta figure out an agreement between how they pay us back, and whether they pay us back to the farm to market account, or they pay us back into our secondary road fund, and we pay the farm to market account back, or we don't worry about the farm to market account.
Can they pay the farm market account back?
I'd have to check on that. They might be able to. I don't know how between the city and the county, we can. So they could pay us and we could pay the farm to market account back.
Okay.
So there's that option too.
Right.
But
I guess I wouldn't be opposed to helping them out if we can, but they gotta have.
they do have to have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
You're right.
But if say they needed $100,000, I mean, could local option go for something like that? I mean,
Yeah, that's why I wondered what the
Yeah.
percentage was of
yeah,
the
with-
340.
I'm sure they haven't done the math yet.
And we haven't, I sprung this on them last night. I mean, I talked to the mayor and Harlan early on in the process, but I thought it was now time to start talking to the whole council so they can kind of absorb what's going on. So,
How soon do you have to know? I mean, should I go?
You
to
know,
the next meeting and
I
find out?
don't really know for sure.
I mean, they have a meeting every month. If I go next month and just see kind of where they're at.
We
with it,
we could probably do that in a month and
I
just
don't
kind
know.
of see, if they thought about any financials.
Figure it out, something like that.
I guess what I kind of thought the burden was gonna be was, it'll be secondary roads, farm to market account burden. We just have to figure out a 2080 agree with how they're gonna pay things back.
And I'm kind of listening to all of you, that maybe the consensus is to continue on with this grant
That's the big thing.
process to hopefully maybe get the 5 million or whatever.
Yeah,
If
if
you
you're gonna
guys
get a bunch of federal money, I'd say continue on.
continue on
Yeah.
and stay strong
Okay.
in it as a
Yep.
community.
That's kind of what I need right now.
Yeah, I
But
don't
in the
know.
meantime, let's think about options. And I'm not saying, and I told them last night, I said, I'm not gonna speak for the board. But if we can get $5 million of money we didn't expect to get to do projects that we were gonna use other funding for, why won't we jump on it? We might have to come up with $2 million to do a $7 million project we'd have to foot the whole bill for. That's a heck of a discount.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't want to put the brakes on. I'm just kind of wondering
Yeah,
how much.
detail.
and
Well,
when need
we
to
can
know
start
and
thinking
that
about
sort of
how
stuff.
financially we can make things work and, without knowing their financial capacity and everything else, what can they afford to do? I mean, they've got a bridge project they're getting done this year. I don't think they have to put any money, but they've got a lot of other infrastructure work they want to be doing in town.
I don't know, they said that bridge was 60,000. I don't know who's paying for it.
Well, they had, it's through the city county bridge fund that qualified for that. Last night, I think they approved engineering contract. I think it was for design, or was it actually construction? I don't remember. I think it was engineering for that, so I don't know what they plan on putting in for a structure, but that was, I think it was $68,000 for engineering. It's gonna be a more expensive
Or is that
structure
what it
than
was
that.
just for engineering?
I thought it was, maybe I was wrong. I just heard a not to exceed fee, and you don't have a not to exceed fee in a construction,
Okay.
more in consulting. So that might be where it's at right now. But, they've got plans to do some other side streets. I think they did the west side of town one year. They want to start working on the east side of town and paving those streets too, get things updated. So they're sticking money into their town, as most towns do that want to survive. My thought is we can improve the road through town, which is our responsibility. Their population of 500. I don't know. I think it really, with the truck traffic through town, you get a good road system through town. Maybe something else spurs economic development. Maybe with all the truck traffic, they get a bigger gas station in town and they can start selling diesel. Who knows? The opportunities, you want to say, are endless, but they're working on housing. They're working on a lot of other things too. So I just think that the opportunity is here. So anyway, I don't want to take any more time, but that's what I have for you.
Any other questions for the engineer?
As long as they don't sit back and say, oh, county will pay for it. And
I don't think that's the intent.
I don't want that.
I don't want that either. No.
I think there's other towns that do the same thing maybe.
Well,
It didn't sound like that. I mean,
other towns, but consider the fact that some towns are population.
Oh, this is real careful.
I know.
I like the program.
Some long range stuff.
The caveat to the program was farm to market extensions through town with populations under 500. So you're out. Unless you want to start de-annexing town houses.
Divide the town up,
Divide the town up in half.
or half, or.
But anyway, that's how the grant works, so.
Well, I got a whole bunch of things to say about that.
I know you could, and, we did kind of pave some stuff in the city here.
A little way, but it's all farm to market, down Fourth Street too.
But you get your money for that. You guys are population that gets your own farm market money.
We'll move on.
Well,
We'll move on.
me and Keith will have our own conversation. You're done.
All right.
Good discussion.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Approve auditor's quarterly report. Okay. Amount of $1,506.51. So is that a motion and, is that a motion, Megan?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll accept a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve the auditor's quarterly report.
Harto has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Meyer seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Roll call, Mark?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Sydney?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Todd?
Okay. Approve county leave payout language. Rachel, is this something that you speak to?
Yes, so it's from the State of Iowa Department, and because we're a part of that group, they want your input. So I did talk to Jenny Adamson down there yesterday, and this is just to get the language approved, and you guys will still have to approve the final once it's done, but this is just to see if you have any problem with what it says.
And then they're gonna eliminate, read out this
Yeah,
is
that's
gone, and this
that's
is
my
the new
understanding.
language.
Yep.
Okay. I'm not an expert on this, but I mean, I didn't have an issue with it. I don't.
Yeah. And I don't believe, I sent you guys an email last week, and
I think it has something to do with if there's a contractor involved and we're paying somebody, has to do with paying out vacation and sick leave rather than in installments. It's, we need to pay it out immediately in a bulk. Is that kind of it in a nutshell?
yeah, and we haven't paid out for child support, but because we're a part of the group, we still have to approve it.
Okay.
But I guess there's always a scenario that in the future we might have to.
Okay. Any questions about that for Rachel? Not, I'll accept the motion to approve county leave payout language. From anybody?
I'll move to make that.
Brian makes a motion, I'll second it. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Roll call, Todd?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Sydney?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Okay, approve resolution supporting current local option sales and service tax. So I'm gonna read this resolution, but I just wanna mention a couple things before we do it. Some counties have adopted local option sales tax, some have not in the state of Iowa. And for Mitchell County, we automatically put some percentage of it to property tax reduction, and the other percentage of it, which is a more larger percent, we used to do things for the county to benefit the county. What the state wants to do is they want to have a statewide, they want to eliminate it for what individual counties are doing. They want to make it a statewide 1% increase. With that, it'll trigger the Outdoor Recreational Trust Fund. They call it the Iowa Water and Land Legacy Trust Fund. And 3/8 of a cent will go to that. There was talk about it being that amount that they take from that penny would be reimbursed. some people are hesitant at what the state says that they will do, and then they change that in the future. And when you think of 3/8 of a cent, when you start calculating it up further, we get about $40,000 that we can use to benefit Mitchell County. That's the monthly amount. 3/8 of $40,000 that came to was $15,000. So they want to use $15,000 of that. If you calc that for the year, it turns to $180,000 as compared to the $480,000 we normally would get a year. So if they don't backfill it, that means we would be losing out on that. They have changed their minds on backfills before, and so some people don't trust what they say. And then January 1st is 2025. Local agencies can't bring it to the table if they want to increase, have a 1% on for their counties. They took that out of the code. So there's a number of counties that are not really happy with what they're doing here, and this resolution pretty much speaks to that. So I'll read the resolution. So it's resolution 1163-23. Whereas the voters of Mitchell County and cities within the county have voted to enact a 1 cent local option sales and service tax in accordance with Iowa Code 423B, and whereas the revenue derived from the tax is used for road and bridge improvements, public safety facilities, and property tax relief, and whereas the residents of Mitchell County have grown to rely on these revenues as a means to reduce property taxes, and whereas the 2023 legislative session has seen the introduction of Senate File 550, which proposes to convert the local option sales tax efforts into a statewide sales tax and impose the local option sales tax in every jurisdiction, thereby triggering the constitutional amendment to require an allocation of 3/8 of a cent to the Iowa Water and Land Legacy Trust Fund. And whereas Senate File 550 proposed to backfill revenues lost due to the proposal, there are concerns of the legislature ability to continue backfilling revenues. And whereas voters across Iowa who have voted to either implement a local option sales tax or not to do so, and whereas voters across Iowa have voted to utilize the local option sales tax, have approved revenue purpose statements, and whereas Senate File 550 also sunsets these provisions on January 1st, 2025, after which no jurisdiction will have the authority to take either a local option sales and service tax proposal or revenue purpose statement to a vote, essentially deleting the local government's ability to have local option sales taxes. Therefore, the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors would like to express their support of the current local option sales and service tax. The current law best represents the interest of voters and furthers the reduction of property taxes, which is a common goal of the county and the Iowa legislature. The Board of Supervisors unanimously supports the Iowa Water and Land Legacy Trust Fund. However, Senate File 550, as currently written, would not only strip the county of control over local option sales and service tax revenues, but would effectively disregard the will of the voters. That's the resolution. And if we approve it, I'm sending it to our legislators so they know that we did this.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
Okay, Meyer makes a motion.
1163-23.
1163-23, yes, that's correct. Meyer's made a motion. Is there a second? Brian? Todd, okay. Any further discussion?
But didn't they say in the legislature that the counties that already have local option sales tax are gonna keep continuing getting the same amount they have been getting?
They talked about backfilling it to make up for that 3/8. If I'm correct, I could be wrong on that, but I think that's, but the concern is sometimes the state has changed their mind on how they backfill things. And then eventually, after 2025, if we can't do anything, then the state, just to make an example now, the state says, well, I guess we need to do a few more things in Cedar Rapids this year, so, or we need this other program, and I think that's the concern. discussion. That's just my
Yeah.
opinion. I'm not an expert on that, but that's my opinion.
I just, soon not give them the opportunity to have our money down there.
Eventually, they're gonna take it anyway.
Here you are.
Just slow down.
Is that called taxes?
Can I add something?
Mhm.
This got brought to my attention through the Service Bureau, because other counties use local option sales tax for secondary road purposes. And they were gonna start losing a lot of their funding for local projects due to this law, or this new legislation, so it came through us, and Rachel probably knew about it too, but I said maybe we should discuss this with the board, because while we don't use lost right now for a lot of secondary road things, other counties do, and they could potentially lose the funding. So it puts a burden on the county to come up with other funding that you guys had, so some counties will lose a lot more than we do, just based on how they fund other projects. Like you said, it's some counties don't have local option sales tax, they'll benefit from it, the other ones won't, if they choose not to back it.
Then we make, what, half the courthouse payment with it, correct?
Right now it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has been doing that, yes. Any other discussion? We have a motion and we have a second. If there's no further discussion, I'll accept a roll call.
I call Sydney,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Motion carries. Discussion, Supervisor HR. So, you want to speak to that a little bit, or? Okay, so, Sid and myself talked a little bit in regards to trying to, we have a number of employees that are underneath of us, the, roads, and different ones. It's just an idea if there's a issue, I don't know how to say, if there's an issue or if there's a problem that other departments are maybe having with us, two members of the board of supervisors could maybe be the HR and actually just mediate that, try to solve that.
Try to alleviate people going to Rachel all the time.
Yeah, because technically you're not
You're not
HR.
People come to you like you are HR, and that's not her job description. We're trying to help Rachel out. And not saying that it only has to be two of us, but we wanted to know what you guys' thoughts were on proceeding with stuff like this. And that would only allocate for Dave, Paul, Amanda,
And roads.
and Rose.
What kind of HR things, I guess?
Just, I guess, trying to, I don't have an HR degree. No, none of the rest of them. But it's just trying to, I don't want to take the whole board out of the deal, that's not the intent either. But rather than board members getting emails and.
So is it more of a finding a policy handbook, kind of defining what's in the handbook, asking those kind of questions, or is it?
Instead of me receiving complaints and issues
Well, that's,
under them,
and that's.
they get it than me, instead of me getting it. Nothing's happened with your department.
No, I want to make sure that it's not, because if there's an issue, it should come to the department head first, and we solve that HR thing there.
Yes.
If not, then,
So it would be department heads coming to us saying, okay, I have this issue.
okay,
I can't resolve it. I need you to have.
I just know that, I think
Mediation.
sometimes there are probably individuals that
That correct?
email behind the,
Good.
Yeah.
define the email and don't go through the department head first, and that would be a problem, because I know sometimes you get, well, what about this, and they're just trying to define something in the handbook or something else, but if there's other issues, that's the one I wanted to make sure, I wanted to know what kind of HR we're talking about, because, yeah, HR stinks. It's not always fun.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to know what we were talking about as far as HR.
So if it's something in your department that you cannot physically handle and need extra support or
Need to mediate,
advice
work
or
out,
legal, then this HR group as a 5 or a committee of 2 maybe would take over that and help you manage that issue. And we're only legally to do roads, Paul, Dave, and Amanda. Everybody else is separate.
I would think the whole board should be involved. But
Yeah.
how you do that without having, going with the 3?
That's it.
That's
That's
the
one
thing.
reason I mentioned too, because we'd have to do it like budget hearings where we'd have to have,
We would have to have a public meeting posted.
and that's
you know.
okay, but.
Yeah.
I would think all 5 should be involved rather than,
I agree.
you probably couldn't do Dave or the secondary roads.
If it would pertain to Dave personally or my husband personally, no, I would not. But I can still handle anything else with roads as long as my husband's not correlated to it.
But that's pretty much involved in everything.
So if it's 5 of us, then how would we?
Here's, let me just interject
Yes.
here over. Here's the issue. A lot of counties around the state of Iowa have gone to the point now where they contract with other firms for HR support. This county has not. I have mixed feelings sometimes whether it's worth the money, because I, not only as county attorney, but in my private practice, I have the opportunity to work for and against counties. And sometimes I think they're worth the money and sometimes I think they're not. But the reason they do it is because it is impossible for the Board of Supervisors as a group to just have any kind of an informal discussion about something. Somebody may have an issue with, it could be anything. It could be something as innocuous as, somebody's got a question of vacation time or this or that, or sometimes you just get people a little bit loggerheads, right? It's not something you necessarily want to have a scheduled meeting for. It's not necessarily something that has to be broadcast everybody. Sometimes it's just where somebody just has to talk to somebody and say, hey, we got to work through this. It's usually a lot of those things you cannot go into closed session if you wanted to. It's also very inefficient to go into closed session, even if you can, and it's also a little bit risky because that you just don't. So I think, the thinking is, I'm going to put this kind of colloquially, maybe a little bit bluntly. One employee gets pissed at another employee, and it's like, okay, so sometimes somebody just needs to step in and say, okay, guys, we're going to sit down here, we're going to work this out. You guys can't do it as a group unless you have a public meeting, right? So, and the other alternative is, like a lot of counties say, we're going to hire an HR person to do that. Some people will say, well, that's what the county attorney does. And I'll say, well, no, I'm not an HR person either. Because I'm a legal advisor, but I'm not a policymaker. So I think that's right. Am I right? That the concern is we need to have some way somebody can receive concerns, complaints, try and handle it informally. Doesn't mean the rest of you can't be involved, but there's got to be some kind of a reception center, right?
Point of contact, yeah.
Rachel gets just
Slammed with something that I can't do anything about.
I don't know how much time you must spend on it. It must be frustrating. And so I think that's kind of one. Which is none of my business, but the reason I'm pointing that out is because there is you gotta be very careful. I don't know how to structure it to say, I mean, obviously, if somebody was gonna, if there's like a decision gonna be made, right? Like if somebody was gonna be terminated or hired or something like that, that's obviously a board decision. It's gotta have to be voted on. But not everything is. Sometimes some things are just sit down with somebody and say, okay, maybe you ought to try doing this different, right? And it would be inefficient, number one, to have you guys have a meeting to do it, and number two, it's just not always conducive to good employee-employee relations if there cannot be any informal discussion. My business is not to tell you guys what to do. My business is to tell you to be very, very careful about how, as a board, you do it. You know, like if you're gonna have like 3 or more of you involved, it's like, no, that's gonna be touchy.
So should we just have one involved and have Chairman Jim?
With the union contracts, how does that?
I don't think we're talking about anything that
That has to do with the union.
I don't think we're not talking about those kinds of issues.
All right. I'm just trying to understand it, I guess.
I don't know, I think if you're gonna do something like that, maybe you should have 2. I mean, 2 heads are better than 1, you know? I mean, that's my suggestion.
I mean, and the big things, obviously,
The big things will come to the
would
board.
come
but
to
if
the board.
it's Small.
I think we're just talking about the very bare minimum problems that happen that.
Okay.
Yeah, bottom line is I can't do it all the time and Rachel can't either.
Exactly. We're trying to just alleviate some of the issues that are going on, and Rachel has taken a lot of that, and she is not the HR person. So we're trying to just clarify that Rachel is not HR. HR is under the statute of supervisors, and it's only for the certain areas.
So I suppose even getting a group of department heads together wouldn't solve that in a sense.
I think maybe the point is sometimes we're dealing with issues that don't include countywide cross section, you know what I mean? I mean,
I'm just trying to understand what the.
I think people are reading too much into it.
Okay.
If we went from the other way, a process of elimination, I would say I'm bowing out of that. I don't want to hear you guys, whoever, you keep me informed on what's going on. If it becomes a board issue, I'll be involved. So now you're down to 4, you know, you see what I'm saying there? And because I think that's what we're thinking, or I'm thinking of the phone calls that go to Rachel on like she just said, I can't even answer them, you know, I mean.
Right.
So I get what you're saying on that, and I mean.
We're trying to help the people going to Rachel's office and complaining that some of those things could be directed towards us and not Rachel, because Rachel has enough stuff to do than just to sit here and listen.
So if there are 2 people doing this, Mark has a valid point as far as the board need to know what's going on. Can those 2 people just inform the other 3 what's going on? Don't want to reply back, just this is what's going on.
It's no different than if I send you guys an email on all 5 of them. And I will oftentimes say, don't reply back, or if you're gonna reply back, it's not like trying to technically get around any kind of a law or anything, right? Because that can also get you in trouble if you're saying, well, I'll talk to you, you talk to them, you talk. It's like, well, that's called a walking quorum, stay away from that. But yeah, I'll eventually, you know, often I'll send you, all 5 of you guys an email, not because I'm wanting somebody to take action on anything or asking for anything, it's just like an informational thing, right? Like maybe I'll send that opioid thing out, so, you know, here, I just thought you guys might like this. So yeah, you do that. Now, you know, a lot of cities, counties have their city councils or supervisors have committees, right? right? Like some will have a safety committee, some will have a personnel committee and everything like that. I don't know if we're talking anything that formal, but I mean, it's not unusual. The fact that we're having this discussion right now in the way that we're having it is a little bit awkward, and is probably one of the reasons why I say, isn't there somebody that could just kind of be the reception point for this stuff and then kind of inform everybody else?
So we're just trying to be courteous and tell everyone that it's not Rachel, it's not her responsibility. And we're trying to come up with something.
Any comments? Direction?
Probably not a bad idea, you know,
Something to try?
but I know there is issues sometimes, and I mean, we're all aware of that, so, yeah.
I mean, they can still, people can send issues to all 5 of us through an email, or if they want to talk to one person directly, or the committee. What's your thoughts?
I just don't see how you pick 2 people and they send out an email, if somebody wants to give a comment, how do you do that without going over the walking form?
I don't know.
It's pretty touchy.
Same way with having 5, and then if we're together, anybody legally can come into our meeting. So then how do you discuss that when that's also not good? But I don't have a great answer.
No, I mean, I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any intent to try and circumvent anybody or to circumvent any open meetings laws or anything like that, because I take those pretty seriously, and I think Mark Watt did too. It's not one somebody we say, hey, we get around that. It's like, nope, 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 don't even try it, don't even consider it. And I also believe in open government. So it's not, and so Mark's right, you can't get some kind of, you know, discussion going among you. But, I mean, I guess like, I don't know, maybe I'm looking for a part-time job and Dave wants a little breather, and I say, hey, I'll do some of this stuff. Hire me part-time to do Dave's job. Which I wouldn't know how to do most of it, but I could maybe mow the yard. And so I do that, and maybe I'm just not doing a very good job. And somebody might say, you know what, that Murphy's kind of sloppy out there mowing the yard, and he's freaking scalping the grass, you know, just, and so you think, okay, do we need to have a board of supervisors meeting to tell Murphy to do a better job? Or can somebody just go to him and say, you gotta quit scalping the grass, and if you don't, then we're gonna have to probably have a different kind of a meeting, right? And then, you know, like, and if I said, if I just kept doing it, right, it's like I just couldn't catch on, then eventually somebody might say, you know, we may have to get somebody else to do this job. Well, then that might be when you would say, well, we're gonna have to do a public meeting and terminate Murphy from mowing the yard. But some things aren't that, right? Some things are just somebody needs to say, hey, Murphy, would you slow down a little bit, pay attention to what you're doing and not scalp the grass, right? I mean, isn't that kind of what we're talking about? In that event, somebody would do it, somebody would talk to me, and then, and some of those things, you know, I don't know, the board of supervisors, maybe everybody needs to be advised. Send out an email and said, hey, by the way, I talked to Murphy today about scalping the grass. Wouldn't be anything anybody need to respond to. Might be some things that are simple enough where you may say, I don't know, maybe you don't need to tell everybody you talked to Murphy about scalping the grass. I mean, that's up to you guys, but I think that's in that kind of what we're talking about here.
I am, yeah. That's a good example. Something we want to try, or a couple people, or Cindy nominated me and drafted me kind of there. But
I should have said Todd.
I would have
You
said
still
no.
can.
Yeah, we have to go District 1 and 2.
I already gave you my point.
District 1 and 2 this year. Next year we'll go 3 and 4.
There
And let's go down the list.
you go.
I will do that. I'm the chair, I will do that, so. If you guys want to do this. Yeah. I mean, it's just discussion too. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like we're-
Yeah, I mean.
If you want to think about it, come up with some ideas to do that, so.
Should
We're
we have
just-
2 on there? I don't know.
Probably.
Probably, I think 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're volunteering and who else is volunteering?
Not me.
Might be something you can vary as often as you want.
Sydney,
Yeah,
what?
You might say, you guys, you two do it this month, somebody the
Yeah,
next, you know?
yeah. It could just rotate it.
6 months.
6-month rotation or something, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
It was kind of your idea.
Gender balance. There
Pardon
you
me?
go. Gender balance right there.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll do it next time.
I don't know.
Does that mean I have to
Sydney's
keep
always on.
going?
Yeah, you're always on.
Obviously, if I'm gonna be on the committee and if anything pops up with Dave or Ben, I will stay out of it and Jim
Yeah.
will take care of it, so. Or, and one of you can pop in with Jim.
Okay, yeah.
And this is not something like this, we're gonna be doing this.
No, it ain't a daily thing or nothing.
No.
We might not, this might not happen for all year. I mean, this isn't like, I tell them people there, I mean, we don't have huge problems going on, so.
But there is minor things that come
Yes.
up that we've all
Yeah.
got.
And everybody else's departments have to come to a meeting to discuss their issues because they are not under our statute, so.
Right.
Okay.
Does
Okay,
that sound good?
yep.
Okay.
So,
April 1st for 6 months.
All right.
sure.
Bring it up for 6 months. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right. Excuse me. Discussion and possible action on Carpenter Sewer Water.
That was a lot.
I put this on just because I want to keep moving on this. This is the guy that's doing it. He's doing a great job for us. It is, wants to move on. And he's doing a great job because he's staying with us until we can get somebody. So I wanted to keep moving on. And Mike, I know you've been involved with this, so I want you to be talking to and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
we wants to be done by May 1st. It was April, but he's staying on till May till we can find somebody, which has been hard to do, but now we have a couple quotes for doing the service. The one guy, the Lonnie, lives in Grafton, which ain't far from Carpenter. He'll do the scope of the work and according to the DNR requirements and whatever. And but he won't be rebuilding the pumps like Mike was, or, you know, so there's gonna be some added costs there. I think whoever we get, they're not gonna rebuild the pumps like Mike did, you know. They want to have at least 2 pumps on hand, you know, for, at all times for breakdowns, well, everybody does. The other guy didn't specify that, so. So anyway, I know Carpenter wants to try to keep the costs as reasonable as possible, because we're, you know, a small town, and I don't know. I think they have some people not paying again, so.
The one question I have is regards to our credibility when we receive quotes and bids. And then after we don't like not we, but after somebody doesn't like the numbers, then we go out shopping for somebody else, and it's easy for anybody else just to undercut that amount because they know what the amount was, what the first one was. That's not really the way you do that. That's not good business, and it's not real credible for us to be doing that. So I have some concerns about that. I know S&H, I think that's what it is. That's the business that they do. That's what they do. We're fortunate with the guy that we've got right now, who's very cost effective. Why didn't the other guy turn his bid in the first time? I guess that's one of the questions. Why didn't that happen?
I don't even think he knew about it. This second guy was somebody that the carpenter, mayor, council, whatever, reached out to and asked him if he could do it. And then they put him in contact with me, and then I went over there Sunday with Mike and him to look at it. He just wanted to see it. He didn't even know it was available, you know. And him and his son are both licensed. His son works for Peoples, and Lonnie works for City of Manly. But I don't know. So yeah, he didn't even know that it was available.
Okay.
There's been other people come forward too, but they want to work under somebody's license, which you can do for a period of time, but Mike didn't want to continue with his license, and some of the other people didn't want people working under their license, you know, which, because of the liability, you know, so it's been, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, and Harris talked to a lot of people, but a lot of them were ones they referred to me, you know, so, yeah, didn't think we were going to get a second bid. That's why I was telling, you know, last week, can we go with just one bid? And I don't know. We're kind of shopping. Yeah, we were shopping. Just like we're just shopping for road graders. You know, we can get one from Caterpillar for this much money, but you know, maybe John Deere would get a cheaper one. You know, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't quite handled right. I don't know. It's just kind of shopping. You know.
But that's a little different because it's not like you're receiving bids proposed by a certain date.
Yeah, we didn't have that out there either. Receiving bids both by a certain date.
I thought it was by their city council meeting, received it up to.
Well, at the last city council meeting, they didn't really want to go with the one. He said they thought it was too expensive, but they wanted to find somebody by May, so I don't know.
We're just trying to keep the cost down for Carpenter, because it's gonna be a problem anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna get raised no matter what, just because of the costs gonna go up, and now we gotta, you know, gonna have to buy pumps rather than like rebuild them at a cheaper cost. And I don't know.
Rebuild them still, you think? You're gonna
He's nope, anymore. I think there's some bad feelings there at the end for some reason. I don't want to discuss.
Okay.
Between some people, but I don't know.
Okay.
I guess what I feel is, we've been dealing with this since the day we took our seats.
Yeah.
And it seems obviously it's been about the money. We've been fortunate to have pretty good service. I think we need to go with the better service. And I mean, I'm afraid, we've already been bitten, and they told us they were gonna keep paying. Everybody was up to date. Remember, they said they said that that was 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago, and now they're behind again. I mean, we gotta pay our bills.
Yeah.
But I'm just a little nervous about getting stung by not having I just know these people, the S&H are gonna take care of it. But, I mean, do we just keep catering to somebody that says that we're trying to get it by cheap? But and on the same token, I understand we're not getting the money from on the cheap end. So, I don't know. I think it's kind of, needs to be some of their responsibility of getting us paid.
You know, they say it's our deal. You know,
No.
it always comes back to your problem. You know. So, yeah, it should have never happened. We shouldn't be involved in it, but that's Nothing we can do about it.
That's unfortunate because, I think originally the county was just trying to do a decent thing to Carpenter in order to make this happen for them. So to target us, I don't really, yeah, and we can't, it's not our fault as far as the prices.
No.
I mean, it just isn't.
No.
We're not making money on this deal.
No.
Anyway, that's, that's,
And if they have more houses in town, they'd have more people paying in, and the cost maybe would be less, but you have 57 houses, it's hard to make it go,
well, I know what S&H submitted, and then I see what the other individual submitted, and, I mean, I'll agree with Todd, I'm just more comfortable with this because I know it's more expensive, but this is the business that they do. And I see what they submitted, I know he's got insurance, he proved that. Because I contacted him to say, you got insurance? And he sent the insurance. Maybe the other individual does too, I don't know, but, what I'm nervous about is if this, you shouldn't always say if, but we've had a few different people doing this operator job. This individual decides not to do it. And this was the only bid quote that we got for this time. Is this person even gonna do it the next time? Say, well, forget it. You didn't accept my first one and then you shop for somebody cheaper. That just is not good credibility on our part to be doing that.
Mike, do you remember when we hired Mike? I think S&H gave us a quote also, didn't
Yeah,
they?
they did, yeah, so did people.
And, so
So good deal.
Oh, good deal, yeah.
did he give us one? He didn't give us one.
He looked at it this time
Yeah,
and
said no.
decided he has enough to do.
So how much you gonna have to raise the rates to cover this and to get their year supply of money in their bank? Because the DNR says we're supposed to have a year supply, which we don't.
Surplus, yeah.
So I would think we have to get that year supply in there too, because I don't want to get in trouble with DNR.
We will.
That's what, how many thousands is that?
That needs to be up to 15,000.
You take 15,000 divided by 60, you'll have to put that money right away.
One thing also
Pass
that
that around, please.
One thing also that's been brought to my attention is that, from contractor or whatever, people that do this, is that businesses that create a lot of flow generally pay more than a residential house, and that ain't happening either over there, so.
Did they, and that to answer Mark's question, I just put some numbers together, but it's based on that higher quote. And you need to pass that around to everybody, Mike.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna look through it quick.
Those are just
No,
numbers.
there's another, you can take a paper
Oh,
and then,
oh, I can just, I thought
Yeah,
this was
that's
back.
right.
Oh, sorry.
sorry,
That's
I did the same thing.
I thought it was more than one page.
That speaks to Mark in regards to an idea to try to build that $15,000 up, but there's just numbers, but.
Sorry.
So with the business, isn't there two pumps? So does that I thought there was two pumps with that one.
No,
Okay.
that's been, I mean, what flow is a lot more, I'm sure.
Because we had a problem at one time, we just put a sump pump in and pumped it out on the very top of the ground till we get to the weekend.
And then the storms are, I don't know. Yeah,
A business in that. Do we need to change the 28E or the whatever, or the ordinance so that it states that somehow to address that, or?
I suppose.
Aaron question.
That's an Aaron question.
To require the bar to have two pumps because of what they're putting out,
But they wouldn't have two pumps, they can just
or,
Pay more.
or a
have a different
pump
rate
or
than a
higher
household.
rate. Or can you require them to pay for their pumps every time that one's replaced versus making
Pumps are
the
2,500.
whole fund pay for it? I don't know.
I'd have to look at that, I'd have to go back and look at that,
Ordinance.
at that contract, which I can do. I just, I've got it over there, I just don't, I don't remember, I'd have to look and see, remind myself of some.
Can you do a special assessment for that amount that's required for the USDA? If you take that and divide it by what they need, you do a special assessment, so you have it in it, because it's technically supposed to be in there like 10 years ago, and it hasn't been. And then you only have to keep up with paying the contractor and, what do you want to say, replacing pumps and parts like that. You know, like if you did a special assessment, just to get that where it is with this, I don't know what the amount would be, but I don't know.
If I'm understanding, I think so.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, if I'm understanding, I think the answer to your question is yeah.
Or we have to charge $250 per household together, 15,000. And then the community center, you can make the argument, they should have a higher rate too. They have a lot of flushes when they get some going on.
So they could be considered that, and the commercial businesses or the community center could be considered 2 units, and so the rate would be twice, or, I mean, I'm just
Yeah,
throwing something out, I don't.
yeah, I just heard that from different people that had looked at it too. You know, people that looked and decided they didn't want to do it. I mean,
Where do you start and stop?
4 people that
The
looked
elevator, you got
with me and with
People
Mike
over
and
there.
didn't want to do it. They agreed. You know, that was their
electric
reply.
company.
I don't know, I assume, like other towns, you know, it's based on water usage, but there's no way to measure the water usage here because, and for like St. Ansgar and Statesville, your water bill, say your water bill's 100, your sewer's
That's what ours is based on, yeah.
based on water usage, and there's no way to base this on water usage, so. It's, yeah. I don't know, and current operator, he's said that a lot of the pumps some of them are still original, and they're probably getting at the age where they're gonna start failing, just because of age, you know, so. It's, yeah, it's, you know, they're $2,500 a piece, so. It's for a new one. That's, yeah,
Well,
I mean, you need to recoup your expenses somehow, you know? I guess if businesses pay more, it would help offset the other. I'm sure businesses in St. Ansgar pay more than residential houses for sewer.
Well, they should have a DNR plan to handle all that sort of thing.
Well, I don't think there's a DNR plan to handle that part, or
We
the
have a
billing.
plan that, you know, says how much a water meter costs and who pays for the water meter, and there should be a plan there somewhere.
Well, like you say, they don't have water meters, they got their own wells, so.
Yeah, so there's no way to determine how much water they're putting in their sewer. Oh, the pumps, yeah. There's one pump at the end of the line that records.
Some idea of how it started, how it began.
Yeah, there's one pump that records the total gallons going to the lagoon. And I know when it rains, that goes way up too, when I suppose because of drain tile and some pumps going in, but that really shouldn't be either, but nobody seems concerned about it when you bring it up, so.
well, we have a lot of questions in regards to, the contractor building the fund, doing it with the increase of the monthly or special assessment. What was the other one? There's another one. No, I lost it.
Business.
New businesses, yeah, paying more.
and getting the ones that are behind back up.
Well, that'll be a special assessment, wouldn't it, Rachel, if they don't pay?
Well, that's my other question. So if there's a drainage tile that had to get repaired, we send out, once we get it all calculated, we send out the bill right then. So we hold that bill to pay it until we get all the money. Can we do that? Can we do an assessment that way, or does it have to be a special assessment on your taxes?
I would,
I don't know.
probably the latter. I might be wrong. This is that I just have to look into, you know, some of this is a strange situation.
Yes.
This is just a bizarre, it's just a bizarre situation that I frankly don't know that you would quite run into this anywhere else that I'm aware of.
But, excuse me, let me ask this question. What happens if Carpenter would unincorporate? We talked about that before, then.
I'd have to look that a little bit closer, but, I mean, because I just have to refresh my memory on that documentation.
Yep.
That,
Because then that whole problem would come back to us.
that, well,
City streets, the sewer.
it would,
and then-
unless, there's just not a lot of good options here, right? I mean, I don't have that contract in front of me, so I don't remember what it says exactly, so I'm kind of speculating, which is a dangerous thing to do, and I don't want to do very much, but, what you're talking about here is, yeah, if Carpenter unincorporated, then they just say, we're gonna walk away from it. And that's a possibility that they could try it. It's also a possibility that it would work. As a county, this is, you don't want to get into discussion that is going to be too much in a situation like this, you know what I mean? But the question would then become whether the city of Carpenter, I mean, they might be able to unincorporate, but, you know, a possible position for the county would be, well, you can unincorporate all you want, but that doesn't get you out of responsibilities that you entered into previously, right? I mean, you know, it's kind of like in my, it's kind of like if you're talking about a private corporation or an LLC, and they enter into a contract and then they dissolve. Well, that doesn't, it's a little more complicated what I'm saying, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's no more responsibility there, right? Same would be true for the city of Carpenter. The question you come into is, and I don't know the answer to this, they try to unincorporate. Okay. Other position is, I don't care if you unincorporate, you still got a contract, you know, and there's certain implied terms, express terms to that contract that you're still gonna be bound by, whether you're an entity or not. Well, as a practical matter, sometimes it's kind of like the example I just used. I may start an LLC, and I may decide I'm gonna be a builder. I don't know anything about it, so I go broke pretty quickly. I enter in all kinds of contracts, my LLC does, and I just go belly up and I dissolve, which is kind of like unincorporated as a city. The contract with the LLC doesn't necessarily go away, even though the LLC is dissolved, which would mean that the other part of the contract has a right to pursue the LLC's assets, right? Now, the question you get into in a lot of these cases then is like, well, what assets are they? Right? So I don't know the answer to that. But Mark's question is, could they just unincorporate, would that be a problem? I would say no, would not be ideal.
I don't want to give many ideas, but
Well,
I know they've talked about it before. so-
I know they have, and that's why I don't think we're necessarily giving anything away here. I mean, they have.
If
We
we
don't go
own,
down that road, but
if we own, I know we own the lagoon and certain things, so I mean, if they're gonna use our stuff, they have to pay for it somehow, whether it be through their taxes or whatever. I mean, it's not like you unincorporated, now you can just still use the lagoon. No, you have to pay much accounting for that service, I would think.
yeah, some, as long as they keep paying, but we had a problem before, with people not paying. and
Yeah.
Times are getting tough, there gonna be more not paying. I hope not, but then you just put it on their taxes and get it eventually at a higher rate. I don't know, it's a tough. Something we inherited.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
When it's wet on their taxes, that gets paid eventually then, correct? Or not? With a
So
penalty?
whatever remaining balance, I don't remember the date that the city gives it to Shannon.
Okay,
But once, whatever is unpaid, they give it to Shannon, and then they get a special assessment for it
okay. That's once a year, probably?
once a year. And it's in the spring when they have to have it turned in. I don't remember the date though.
Well, I've got wrote down things that we questioned today. One is the contractors, or the two operators that submitted, the higher flow rate, how to build a $15,000 fund, whether it's on the fee or through a special assessment. I don't know if there's anything else. I mean, we can think about those things, or we'll have to decide if we're gonna make a motion today, how we're gonna solve those questions. So we need to table it or figure something out.
I mean, time's running out, we
Yeah.
have to remember that.
I think we need to find an operator firsthand, you know?
So if we find an operator, how do we find an operator? We set a public hearing for amending the ordinance. In order to set that public hearing, we need to know what the rates are gonna be and how we're going to, if we're going to build that $15,000 and tack it onto the rate. I mean, that's,
I think worst case scenario, even if you pick an operator you choose, so at least that's set in stone for May 1st, you have someone. Even if you think about it for a week, it would move just as far as publishing it, just move it back 1 week, which would put it to May 2nd. So instead of in their May bill, I'd just change it to the June bill that they start paying, where they should have, at least for the first month, enough money to pay the operator. I mean.
Okay.
I don't know. So I don't think you'd have to do the ordinance, or like set the public hearing for the ordinance, but you could still pick which operator.
and so then figure out how we're gonna
Take
build
the
the
week
fund
to-
and all that. Okay.
There was one pump too where the wiring went bad. Mike ran it over top of the ground, so I think he was in contact with an electrician to get it buried back in. It goes from the pit to the house to the control box, so that'll be an expense coming. I don't know how much the harness was.
I'm assuming that was the cable that.
That cable, yeah.
Yeah, last night.
Just,
Give me just a second, I have
Not-
the email.
I mean,
But it was in the claims that you approved today.
okay. But that was for carbon, yeah.
Yeah.
The fund balance should be enough to get by a month.
That was $230.
Okay, so if it's another $100 to put it in or whatever. Okay. I didn't know how expensive it was. Sometimes you don't know on some of that stuff.
Well, I'll accept the motion to approve a contractor for the Carpenter Sewer and Water project. From somebody.
I'll move to make a motion to hire S&H Environmental Services.
Frank has made a motion for S&H. Is there a second? I will second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Roll call, Mike,
I nay.
Todd,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Mark,
Nay.
Sydney.
Okay, motion carries.
So the rest of this probably table until next week.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out I guess, come up with some ideas and how we wanna build that fund and the flow rates. I don't know, Aaron, if you looked at some of that over and see if we just modify the 28B or how if somebody has, and that's a legitimate concern, if somebody's dumping a bunch in there and other people aren't, I mean, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you guys know what you wanna do,
Yeah, okay,
I mean, I
okay.
can put it together.
And I guess, the only way I can say this is in a public meeting but I think possibly we'd be willing to work with those people. I mean, we have been, but like maybe not put a huge chunk on right away and try and get this money, the reserve filled, I mean, let's kind of be, I mean,
For the numbers that are Jim has out are reasonable.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and maybe we, I'd like to work with them, but I want them to pay their bills too, and, I think I think we have a longer standing here, I'm hoping, with this company. Nothing against the other bid, but I just don't want to go through this again, I'd like to try and get something so where this has been a headache since we've been here, and it's not because of us, we didn't do this.
No, we're just
So,
trying to make it work.
Mike and Mark, I appreciate all the work you guys have been doing and going to the meetings and trying to work with them and I'd like to continue on that, but I would like to move on from the headaches of it.
Yeah.
So,
I have one thing too, I don't know if we update the ordinance and raise it, obviously. We have a clause in there that it'll automatically raise 2 or 3% every year, maybe to keep up with additional costs, and we don't have to update the ordinance as often, or is that a possibility? I'm just asking,
yeah, I think so.
because, and maybe that'll help build the reserve too, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there,
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
I don't.
you guys, here's the, I don't know any more about that than you do, but you guys are asking all the right questions, and if you guys if you know how you want to proceed,
Just say
and
yes.
I can, I can prepare what I need to prepare, but I mean, I think the answer to your question is, yeah, you could do that. That'd be
Either a dollar amount or a percentage amount or something, each year then we don't have to.
instead of just kind of trying to manage a difficult situation that kind of got dumped in your lap and.
So let's bring ideas to the table next week in regards to, the contractors, ideas on this, the higher flow rate as far as who and what would be defined as far as people with higher flow rates? Commercial businesses, the rec center or whatever, I mean, it's hard to target people, but if you say it's a commercial business, you're gonna get charged more. I don't know how to do that, but we need to think about that. And then to build the fund, we're gonna build the fund on top of this rate, or like what Rachel suggested as far as a special assessment, and you'd have to look into that, right, to see if we can do that. And then Mike's thing as far as percent yearly increase, to keep ahead of things, I mean, those are some things we'll have to kind of discuss next week. Sound sound good, or any other comments or ideas, or?
So we don't have to set a public hearing date today?
No, we don't have some of those answers. We're gonna have to look those answers up, Rachel, before we get to that point.
And if you get your answer sooner, I mean, unless we know by tomorrow at the end of the day, I can't get it to the papers for the following week, so.
Well, I meant
If we
like,
find them right away, otherwise, just wait a week.
you have a date in here of April 25th, so that would be 2 weeks. Could we have answers by then?
So, but we'd have to know now, because if we, once it publishes, we have to provide the paperwork if someone were to come in and ask what
Yeah.
it says, is the only thing.
Gotcha. Wait till next week.
Okay, so think about that stuff, and we'll talk about it more next week, and
So we get some more questions coming after today's meeting also.
could be.
I'll find out from Mike too, just how many pumps are operable right now, you know, for availability, you know, what he's rebuilding. I know he's rebuilding at least 2 of them.
Okay.
But he was gonna finish them up, you know. So,
Seems like we're just always just getting by
Just
with this
getting
whole
by,
thing.
yes.
I mean, everything is just, well, just getting by, and it's, again, we're not trying to make a profit, but.
No. No, I know it's.
All right, that's a difficult topic, line item, always has been. It just is. All right. Discussion, possible action on generator. So it won't be, I went and got contacted a couple of contractors to see if they'd be interested in wiring the generator. Haven't received their quotes yet. And so there won't be any possible action. This is just discussion because I don't have any numbers at all. Also, I'm going to have to, because of the discussion with them, and Dave talked with them primarily because he knows all the whole thing. We're gonna have to get a hold of a plumber also in order to do the gas line because the electricians won't do gas. So,
I contacted an electrician too, he's gonna get a quote
okay, all right,
this week.
okay, very good. So I'll get a hold of a plumber to try to see what that's gonna cost us to, for the gas line. Anything else on that?
Where's the generator gonna sit, which side of the building?
Be on the north side of the building, right adjacent to where the air conditioners are, kind of in that area. There's the meters right there, the gas meters.
Oh, the gas meter's right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that where the power goes into the building too, probably? Or close?
Yes, yeah. I can't remember exactly where, but yes.
Okay, I just, curious.
I'm glad you said that, Mark, so I wouldn't have went any further with it. So as soon as you get that, let me know, okay? Appreciate that, thank you. Discussion on TIF payment. Rachel, this is you.
So it was asked if it was possible this year, because I know we've had some commitments out of local option sales tax out of that fund, if we can pay the full courthouse payment out of the TIF fund. This year we can, and it would have a carryover balance of roughly 370,000. It's possible to go either way. If we do it out of take the full courthouse out of the TIF, then we just need to amend the line item for it. But then you'd be amending that and taking down the local option, so it's basically a wash on the budget. I just need to know how you'd like to do it.
So to put more, we'd be able to utilize more of our local option sales tax.
Yeah,
stuff.
it's like 270-ish thousand that would be taken out of local option if you were to do it that way.
Well, if the TIF fund can pay it, I would just assume use the TIF fund to pay it, so we can use the other money for the taxpayers, but that's just my thought.
It's legal to do it either way? There's no.
Yeah.
Nothing carved in stone, okay.
Is there a motion for this?
No action, and it's in the past, the auditor's office just kind of did it however where there was money, but I'm just asking which way you want to do it.
We can do consensus of the board.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm good with it. I'm good with it.
It was easy for you, I guess. It's coming out somewhere.
Yeah.
Mike's good, but Sydney? Good.
Okay.
We're good with it. Discussion and possible action on HVAC pay request number 11. So, I'll just find this here. So Midwest Engineering came the other day and looked the site over. Xander Van Beek, the electrician, the electrical engineer, which is Brendan Rolick, Dave and myself, reviewed the courthouse mechanical room, and most, if not all, the pipework and pumps are installed down there. And we reviewed the jail mechanical room. There's electrical service panels are down there. There's a square V transformer, a large one that converts 480 into 120 volt. And there's a conduit that's placed. And when we went up into the attic, there's electrical service panels up there, square V transformer up there also, small air handling unit up there. It's all been placed on that wooden platform that was built up there. And there's a lot of electrical conduit that's been done up there also. So there's been a lot of electrical work that has been done. So Midwest Engineering was gonna get a hold of Casper in regards to some concerns that they had. My mouse working, there we go. So they did he did send him an email. Andrew sent Casper Plumbing an email. There's a lifting lug that's broken on one of the pumps and it just needs to be repaired. Some solder spatter, some of this stuff is pretty minor. Up in the platform, we talked about the junction boxes and as far as you can't cover them up. So what they did was they just simply, in the surface that you walk on, they just sawed out above the junction box so that you just lift the wood out and do it. But my concern was you're walking around up there and it's really easy to not be able to see those too. Plus we want to make sure that somebody doesn't set a piece of equipment on one of those areas. So he told me he'd like to go up there, just, if nothing else, just a little blob of paint on every one of those so that it's clear where those are up there. So there was that one. And then I also said we're getting into some warmer weather and the priority is for the control room to not be 90 degrees in there. That's the hot area over there at the jail. So he made it clear to them. I wanted to ask you what your plan is to provide the administration portion and control room of the jail with cooling, with outside air temperature rising. So he addressed the contractor in regards to that. We need to address that problem. So we have pay. I want to go through that before the pay request. A lot of this is electrical, like I said. This pay request is for $52,606.72. And I think I emailed you guys that also, I think.
So everything's pretty much going as planned, correct?
Yeah.
No equipment shortages?
Yeah, there was, one of the easiest things that you thought would have been sent is called a dirt separator. And you couldn't get it. So he ended up approving a different dirt separator, which he said he thinks is actually probably better than what we originally had planned. So that should be coming, but pretty much all the materials here.
That's good.
So if you've all had time to look at that, I'll accept the motion for HVAC pay request application 11 for $52,606.72.
I'll make that motion for pay application number 11.
Myers made a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Henderson seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Roll call, Todd,
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Sydney.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye. All right, items of note, meetings attended. I had nothing.
I only attended the public hearing for Board of Adjustments.
Yeah, I attended the Board of Adjustment meeting too, and I went to next era energy meeting at the seminary building last Thursday. Just kind of informal. They had maps and they had, you know, a bunch of landowners were there and stuff. Talking to people about stuff. It sounds like it's going pretty good, I think. Kind of the consensus I got. I was talking to I don't know, the one guy was, he asked if any towns or county had any projects going on. Cause they like fund stuff, like he said, but the last place they were at, the rural needed a fire truck, or they needed $150,000, and he called his boss told him to write him a check, so I know the fair board is planning on building a building, taking down some within the next couple of years or something in there. So I put him in contact with Galen because they want to spearhead the project, so that'll be, you know, good.
Good, I mean, good people, a number of people there.
They seem, yeah, I mean, and the farmers, I was sitting by talking there, they think it's gonna be a good deal, you know, the project, so.
And the number of people though, I mean, there's a good amount of people.
Well, Mark was there too, how many was there, 20, 30?
Okay.
They plan on having one every month, so I don't know if they're just inviting different landowners each time, or how they're.
Anybody, I think.
Anybody, did you get an invite? Other than the county? Oh, okay, because you got some land in it, so.
Just in the paper, they saw it.
Oh, is that where the people saw it? Okay, I didn't know if they were sending out personal invites to people. Okay. I didn't know. Okay, anyway, so that's, I just went to city council, Rich, last night. Okay. Okay, that's all I got.
Just had a Shell Rock Water Shed meeting. 3 weeks ago, they had a open house to get people's ideas, what was going on, and what ideas they wanted to have done in their watershed. And they had quite a few sticky notes on their map, so they take that home and see what projects they want to start implementing.
I attended the planning zoning also, and then I had a fair board meeting last night. Basically just went over the checklist. They're gonna be rolling soon on the ground when the weather's doing good and the ground drying out. I believe they have a swine weigh-in this Saturday. They renewed some contracts with like Polly's for mowing, and they have got a couple of lead kids are going to do some landscaping on that grandstand area on the west side of the outside. They'll probably get rolling on that when the weather gets fit. So, yeah, they.
Was Galen there? Did he mention?
Galen did, he mentioned it to me, kind of about what you had talked about in, early stages of it, so.
Did he connect with that guy from Next Era or not?
Well, I asked him, asked him if he had visited with Benton, and,
This guy was, oh, he was Benton, that was his Benton's boss.
okay.
Mark was in.
Mark, yeah.
And so that explains why,
Yeah, Mark.
Benton didn't ring a bell to
Mark
him.
is the boss. It was the head guy that was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, I told him we kind of all work together on that and see where, that's a heck of a deal about that fire truck.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought. And I thought, oh, shit. That's what I thought the mayor. I knew he was gonna be doing something, a building, taking some down, putting some up in the next few years. And
Yeah.
Maybe gonna be 500,000. Yeah, kind of. So,
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully they.
And that was it.
Okay. Manure management. No, I'm looking at the wrong one. Public comments. You know, lone dog walking back into the room there. Okay,
Stuff.
I think all the agenda items are done. We will adjourn the meeting.
Well, guess I'll go see what Dan is going to do across the street.